December 17, 1944. The frozen woods of the Ardennes lay silent beneath a gray winter sky. Snow muffled the distant thunder of war as Obergefreiter Hans Mueller crouched in his foxhole, his fingers stiff with cold, scratching words into a battered diary that would haunt him for the rest of his life. "The Americans are not like the Russians," he wrote. "Their artillery is something else entirely. It is not the volume of fire. It is the speed, the accuracy, the certainty that you have no time to react. One moment there is silence, and the next, the world explodes." Through the fog that morning, Müller's battalion of the 6th SS Panzer Army had advanced confidently, believing Hitler's final offensive in the West would crush the thin American lines before them. They were wrong. What Mueller and his comrades were about to face was not simply superior firepower. It was the most lethal, coordinated, and technologically advanced artillery system ever created. It would shatter their offensive and expose the true scale of America's industrial and military superiority. The seeds of that defeat had been planted long before. The Battle of the Bulge. German veterans transferred from the Eastern Front in 1943 and 1944 came west, expecting familiar rhythms of warfare. Against the Soviets, they had learned to read the battlefield, to survive Russian barrages that followed predictable patterns, ranging shots, slow corrections, long pauses between fire. The Russians were deadly, but they were human. The Americans were something else entirely. Veteran Otto Schmidt, a survivor of 2 years on the Eastern Front and later captured in Tunisia, described the first time he encountered American artillery. His unit had taken cover in a wadi north of Tunis, confident in their position. "The Russians would have needed an hour to find us," Schmidt recalled. "We felt safe enough to heat coffee." Then a small plane appeared overhead, a Piper Cub, unarmed and unthreatening. Within 3 minutes, the entire wadi erupted in a storm of steel. Shells landed with terrifying precision, all detonating at once. Out of 123 men, only 11 survived. The plane, the unassuming L-4 Grasshopper, had called down a barrage so fast, so synchronized, it seemed impossible. German troops soon learned to dread the sight of that tiny aircraft, because when a Grasshopper appeared, death followed. The American secret lay not in one invention but in an entire system. A network of precision, coordination, and technology that turned artillery into a machine of instantaneous destruction. At the heart of it was the Fire Direction Center, or FDC, a revolutionary concept that centralized targeting data from multiple batteries. While German guns operated independently, each calculating its own range and trajectory, American batteries fed information to the FDC, which could coordinate dozens of guns at once, striking a single target from miles apart, as if fired by one hand. This precision relied on an invisible army back home. Rooms full of women in offices across the United States, working day and night with mechanical calculators and slide rules, computing every possible firing variable: wind speed, air density, barrel wear, altitude differences, propellant temperature. Their work produced firing tables so complete that in the field, an officer didn't need to calculate. He simply looked up the answer. The result was a system that could deliver devastating fire in minutes instead of hours. But tables alone weren't what made the difference. The Americans introduced a technique called time on target, or TOT. This method synchronized every gun in a fire mission so that shells, fired from different batteries at varying distances, would arrive at the target simultaneously within 3 seconds. For soldiers caught beneath it, there was no warning, no whistling approach, no chance to dive for cover. One moment, silence. The next, the sky itself exploded. Studies after the war revealed that most casualties from artillery occurred in the first seconds of a barrage. Time on target ensured that those seconds were fatal. "You hear nothing," wrote one German survivor, "and then the world ends. You are alive one moment and dead the next." The speed of American artillery response astonished German commanders. Their own guns, considered among the best in the world, could deliver accurate fire in 8 to 10 minutes under ideal conditions. American guns did it in 3. Their advantage came from superior communication, FM radios that cut through static and interference, unlike the older AM sets used by the Wehrmacht. Every American infantry battalion had multiple forward observers with radios, while German units often had only 1 or 2 for an entire regiment. These observers weren't just artillerymen. They were infantry-trained, moving with the front line, seeing what the troops saw, and calling fire within seconds. And unlike their German counterparts, they weren't limited to their own battalion's guns. A single American lieutenant on the radio could summon the firepower of an entire corps. German officers found themselves overwhelmed by invisible hands commanding destruction from miles away. The guns themselves were a testament to America's industrial power. The standard M2A1 105mm howitzer was simple, rugged, and mass-produced to exact tolerances. Each American infantry division fielded 36 of them, organized into 3 battalions. By war's end, more than 8,500 had been built. They were fully motorized, hitched to trucks that could tow them across the battlefield at highway speeds. German batteries, by contrast, were still pulled by horses. Despite the propaganda of mechanized panzer divisions, over 80% of German artillery movement depended on horse teams. In the muddy, frozen forests of Belgium, that difference was fatal. American batteries could fire, displace, and fire again in under half an hour. German units took hours to move and often couldn't move at all once the horses were killed. "We fought a 19th-century war with horses," one German gunner later wrote, "against an enemy fighting a 20th-century war with trucks. And if the 105mm guns were the workhorses, the 155mm long Tom howitzers were the hammers. Their 43-kilogram shells could destroy concrete fortifications at 14 kilometers. Above them, the Americans fielded even heavier pieces, 8-inch and 240mm howitzers, at corps and army level, all of which could be called into battle by a single forward observer. This pyramiding of firepower meant that a small American infantry company could command more destructive potential than an entire German regiment. But the true revolution came with a fuse, the variable time VT fuse, also called the proximity fuse. Containing a miniature radar transmitter, it detonated the shell at the optimal height above the ground for maximum fragmentation. Introduced in late 1944 and first used in the Battle of the Bulge, it changed everything. The shells no longer exploded on impact, or according to a timer. They burst above the ground, showering deadly fragments downward. Foxholes and shallow cover were useless. German soldiers who had survived years of war suddenly found their experience meant nothing. "These demon shells," Hans Mueller wrote, "exploded above us. The fragments came down like rain. We had no defense except deep bunkers, and no time to dig." The psychological toll was immense. Some units refused to move in the open, preferring surrender to certain death. One officer recorded near mutiny among his men, who refused orders to advance under VT fire, knowing survival was impossible. Behind every shell lay a vast industrial machine. American factories produced thousands of guns, millions of shells, and shipped them across oceans faster than Germany could replace losses. Rock Island Arsenal alone built more than 10,110 howitzers. German industry, crippled by Allied bombing and resource shortages, could not compete. Their guns were technically excellent, but there were never enough of them, and ammunition was scarce. Some German batteries were allotted only a few shells per day. Meanwhile, American artillery fired thousands per hour. A captured German officer summed it up bitterly. "We fought a poor man's war against a rich man's enemy." When the Battle of the Bulge began, over 200,000 German troops and 1,000 tanks surged through the Ardennes. For a few days, they achieved surprise, but American artillery soon found them. German batteries, unable to move quickly or resupply, were annihilated by counter-battery fire. By Christmas, the offensive had stalled. Even when ammunition rationing temporarily limited American fire, their efficiency ensured every round counted. When the skies cleared after the 25th, supply resumed, and the full weight of American artillery fell upon the German army. In less than a month, the offensive collapsed. Captured reports from German officers told the same story. We were defeated by artillery before we were defeated by infantry or tanks. After the war, German prisoners held in the United States saw the system that had destroyed them. They watched artillery training exercises, saw the precision, the teamwork, the sheer organization behind it all. Many were stunned. One former artillery officer, after studying American methods, concluded, "They took what we did by skill and made it systematic. Where we relied on talent, they relied on process. They turned artillery from an art into an industry." By 1945, German artillery had withered to a shadow of its former self, short on shells, short on guns, short on horses. American artillery, in contrast, only grew stronger. New radios, better computation, and constant production ensured that every unit, from the smallest company to the largest corps, could summon firepower at will. Historians later concluded that artillery, not tanks or planes, was America's most decisive battlefield advantage. General Franz Halder himself wrote, "American artillery achieved what we thought impossible. They made it the dominant weapon of war." For survivors like Kurt Zimmermann, who later emigrated to the United States, the memory never faded. When asked what weapon he feared most, he didn't hesitate. Not tanks, not planes, not infantry, artillery, the fire that came without warning, the knowledge that you could die without ever seeing your enemy. The story of American artillery in World War II is more than a tale of weapons. It's a portrait of industrial warfare at its peak. It was precision married to production, technology fused with training, efficiency elevated to a doctrine. The soldiers who faced it learned the hardest truth of modern war: that courage and skill, no matter how great, cannot stand against a system built to deliver death with mechanical perfection. The thunder that rolled through the Ardennes that winter was more than artillery. It was the sound of the industrial age crushing the old world of war beneath its weight.